Dings. Great to be
Okay.
here with everybody. ClimateHaven CEO and ClimateHaven board member. I've had the pleasure of working with Kiko since the inception of ClimateHaven in late 2022. And prior to joining ClimateHaven, have had an interesting career. Started out a commercial real estate attorney, and fell in love with the built environment and buildings and all of the things that power our physical world. And from there, realized that the billable hour was not going to define me. Made the move into an operational role with a building tech company, and then from there helped co-found a clean tech company. One of those raised a lot of money and was a massive disaster. The other raised less and was a really nice success. And since then, I've been investing and supporting and working with entrepreneurs and helping great organizations and institutions like Yale build entrepreneurial ecosystems. And it was through Yale a couple of years back that I got to meet Kiko, and he and I got to start working together on ClimateHaven. Kiko.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, and thanks, Ellen. I likewise, I had the fortune of being able to work with Ryan from the very beginning with ClimateHaven. So I'm the portfolio manager, and a part of the founding team of ClimateHaven. And I originally graduated from Yale in 2022 with a degree in applied physics. My background was mostly in quantum computing at the time, at the YQI and the Deveray Lab. And then really worked on backing founders in traditional climate tech, right? With Ryan in New Haven. Then I had a short stint as well in San Francisco, and for a couple of years was at Lower Carbon Capital, which is a multi-billion-dollar venture firm that invests across energy, industrials, advanced materials, everything you can imagine under the sun with adaptation, resilience, and carbon. So yeah, and spend a lot of time primarily working with at the earliest stages of company formation, right? And what I get really excited about both there and also back here now with ClimateHaven really is the physical economy and a focus on energy infrastructure. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Just a quick note on format for all the folks that have joined. We'll be going through kind of a discussion. We do have a Q&A box through the webinar, kind of through the webinar format. So if you do have questions for Ryan and Kiko about ClimateHaven, about how to get involved, about the climate sector in general, feel free to pop those into the Q&A. If they are, we'll try to work those into the conversation where it's relevant. If not, we will reserve some time at the end to go through those questions. So please feel free to submit questions in the Q&A box through the Zoom interface. I will pass it back to Ryan. You want to give a quick rundown on ClimateHaven itself? What do you guys do? What's your kind of thesis? Just to set the stage and give people an idea of ClimateHaven's mission and current ideas.
Absolutely, Ellen. So I thought a good way to kind of structure the conversation and set up the rest of the conversation was to start by setting the table. So allow me to just pull up a few slides, and I would love to walk through exactly how we think of ClimateHaven. You got slides on the screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Let's start at the beginning. ClimateHaven was formed in late 2022 with the support of Yale University. We are based in New Haven, Connecticut, right off of campus. We're on 770 Chapel Street, just on the other side of the town green. And we were established not as part of Yale or as a program of Yale, but as a separate nonprofit organization. We are an independent 501c3 organization, and with the support of Yale and some other great funders. And our goal is to advance entrepreneurship that is going to improve our planetary health, enhance our physical world, and ultimately advance a lot of the great science and research that is on campus and find opportunities to commercialize it off campus. And so the way we think about doing that, and the people that we specifically work with, are founders that we find at the university. We work with a lot of students on campus, and we work with students that are both contemplating launching the startup when they graduate, whether from undergrad or graduate school, or potentially leaving school to launch their startup because they have so much conviction in the problem that they are solving. This is truly about turning those concepts, those ideas, those breakthroughs into startup companies. We work with operators, Yale alums, along with a number of really talented entrepreneurs in the greater kind of metro New York, New England area, as well as a few entrepreneurs throughout the country that we just see incredible promise with. And promise in. And we see an opportunity to help them take this early stage venture that they've built or they've developed and prepare it to really scale. And interestingly enough, we work and we spend a lot of time in the labs on campus, working with faculty, working with PhDs and postdocs, thinking about their research, understanding the potential of it, and really helping them identify commercial applications for that research and working with them to see if there's an opportunity to take that breakthrough science and see if that could be the, be kind of the foundation of a product, which could ultimately be the fuel to help a great company scale. And so that involves working with them at the early stages of company formation and helping them think how they make that transition from lab to market. What we do is really try to roll up our sleeves and work with these founders at the very early stage. Our expertise, our focus, our reason for being is that campus to market transition. I mentioned we do work with some operators who are alums, as well as some early stage founders from around the greater New York area and around the country. But ultimately, our bread and butter and the vast majority, I'm talking 85 to 90% of the founders that we work with will be Yale students, either undergraduate or graduate students who are being prepared to make that campus to market transition. And so what does that mean? Well, it means working with first-time founders and helping them accomplish a lot of firsts. We're talking about first hires, right? A lot of times we have a technical founder who's looking to build out a co-founding team that's going to allow them bring this technology and sell it to customers. Sometimes it's the opposite. We have a person who has identified a problem, come up with a really compelling solution, and is going to be the perfect salesperson for this company, but needs the technical talent, the folks with the chops who can build the product and make sure it's enduring and defensible. So we work a lot around first hires and helping founders think about the types of teams they need to build in order to scale. We work with teams helping them generate and identify those first customers, right? This is so hard, especially in climate tech, where most of the sales are B2B. So this means developing a really coherent go-to-market strategy, understanding how long it's going to take to actually complete that sale and start generating revenue, and then generate repeatable revenue such that they can wean themselves off of that venture capital that is their lifeblood at the various early stages. And all of that translates, of course, into that first capital, helping founders take a really hard look into actually what are the dollars that they need? How much capital do they need? What are the uses of that capital? What are they going to do with it? And what are the milestones that they're going to be able to achieve in order to increase the enterprise value of their business so they don't dilute themselves into oblivion? Incredibly talented people that we work with, the founders that we work with, but most all of them are first-time founders, and each one of these is a first that we help them tackle. And ultimately, we want to be working with critical problems, and we want to be working with the founders that are tackling them and helping, take the technologies that they've developed and figure out ways to enhance, figure out ways to power, figure out ways to revitalize our physical world. And so what does that mean when we think about the physical world? This is a big tent approach to climate tech, and this is the one that our team has adopted. One, because we think it's an opportunity to bring the most talent in, and two, frankly, we think it's the most responsive in 2026 to the planetary challenges that we face. So first and foremost, that's planetary health. That means scaling solutions that improve durability, efficiency, and long-term resilience. It also means economic resilience. This is about building supply chains, manufacturing, energy systems, and infrastructure that work repeatedly and work all the time for our economy. And it's about frontier science. It's about translating frontier research into deployable technologies and companies, whether that means on this planet or interstellar, in order to make sure that we're using all of the technologies to improve the means by which we communicate, the means by which we transact, and ultimately the means by which we build prosperity for the future. So our version of climate tech, our definition of climate tech, it's a big tent definition, and it one where ultimately we want to work with any founder that is hell-bent on building a company that is going to enhance, improve, or power our physical world. And we're very fortunate to be supported by the university, to be right in New Haven, and to be spending our time on campus working with amazing founders, helping them tackle all those firsts, and ultimately helping make our world a better place. So, Ellen, I hope that framing was helpful to give a sense kind of the work we do, and hopefully that'll set us up well for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for giving that overview. I do want to poke a little bit into some of those areas that you're talking about. So I know you've just talked about, the supporting founders who are building in the physical world, in our physical environment. So that sounds like it's in contrast to kind of a lot of tech companies that are more focused on digital experiences, things that are purely kind of software. Can you talk a little bit about one? Is that kind of the right framing? And then two, what are some of the challenges that are unique to these kinds of companies, these kinds of problems that founders are tackling? And just, any examples that you have of like, hey, this is something that actually does need a lot more support than what's out there, and this is why ClimateHaven exists to provide that support.
Great question. I'll start, and I'm going to let Kiko jump in here as well. But I would, I would, I would, I would, I think it's a good question. I'm not. I was going to say I was going to push back on it, but I think I would encourage us to think more broadly. And I would think back about climate tech and the journey that it's had over the last decade or so, where there, I think, was a big emphasis on a lot of physical products that ideally were lower carbon and would replace higher carbon alternatives. And so you can think of the journey of climate tech, really starting with renewables, right? Solar, wind, electric vehicles, created a really wonderful start. And you could think of the focus over the last number of years as how do we find low carbon or no carbon alternatives to the high carbon incumbents that exist in our economy? This could be a green steel, a green cement, kind of a low carbon or no carbon agriculture products, kind of green commodities. But pay attention to that word commodity. The challenge was that there were so many low margin products that we were aiming to supplant. And we can get into, how the kind of macro climate for climate tech has changed. But, one thing that is very exciting for us is that as we sit here in 2026, we're not just thinking of those, kind of like green cement or green steel companies or those kind of low carbon physical product companies as the only entrepreneurs we want to support. Of course, we want to find great entrepreneurs that have compelling offerings, kind of in those sectors or technology areas. But what we're genuinely interested in supporting, and why we're so excited about kind of climate tech as it stands right now, is the fact that there are all sorts of advances in artificial intelligence that can be applied to our physical world, and that there are so many gains to be had through the application of the right types of software and the proper application of artificial intelligence to our physical world, that it can solve problems in manufacturing, in our supply chain, in very carbon intensive industries, and can help us address resilience and adaptation and the management of our energy systems. So that's exciting, because to me, when I think of climate tech, I think of all of those those kind of traditional sort of physical commodity, physical low carbon companies that we've gotten to know over the last 3 to 7 years, and the opportunity for artificial intelligence to come in and really be a driving force for new opportunities and for cost reductions. Kiko, what say you, my friend?
I love that framing, and I really love the question as well, Ellen. I think the one thing I can tack on to that answer is maybe give you an example, right, of one of the companies that we're working in stealth with right now. So they're building a company that is doing maintenance logistics for the trucking industry.
Hmm.
And I think most people would hear that and think, okay, well, what does that have to do with climate, right? And the thing that I would respond with, that has everything to do with climate. And it actually is a pure play software company. The whole idea here is that this company is working on basically eliminating downtime in this industry that has been massively overlooked by Silicon Valley, has been massively overlooked by Wall Street. But there is so much margin, so much inefficiency here. And as trucking and as transportation becomes electrified, right? As it becomes more and more autonomous, we believe that there is a lot of emissions reductions that can happen when we decrease downtime here. And so that's like, I think, a perfect example of something that maybe like has never felt like climate tech, but we believe strongly that it really does make a massively positive impact for the physical economy. And that's why we're interested, and that's why we're doubling down on our efforts to support that founder.
Nice. Are they connected to Paul at Fleetworks yet?
Nope, not yet.
All
I don't
right.
believe so, at least.
It might be a good some good synergy with the Yale environment. We had Paul on to talk
We're,
about
we're helping with first
climate.
customers as we speak. I love this. All right.
Yes. Always looking to connect the ecosystem. That's what we're here for. Let me know. We had Paul on to talk through a webinar of what he's working on in terms of reducing inefficiency in the dispatching process. And so they might have some good connections there to make, even if it's just getting into the industry. And that's actually something that I wanted to ask as well. So I know you guys mentioned when we were just chatting about helping a number of companies through fundraising, you also talked about the fact that a lot of these companies are going to B2B. B2B customers. So can you talk through a little bit of like how you help companies through that process, knowing that, I think that's one of the things, like being a student founder is great. As a former student founder, like you've got the energy, you've got the time, you've got the drive and the optimism to tackle those really hard problems. On the flip side, what you don't have is those decades of industry experience and that Rolodex of people to reach out to, which, helps, I think, people who've been in the industry get ahead. How do you guys make up for that gap and help them get over that first hurdle of finding their first customers?
With a heavy dose of honesty. That is if there is if there is an ingredient on the shelf that we love to use when helping a founder cook a great meal, it is honesty. And this is part of the transition from campus to market, right? We're working with incredibly talented founders across campus. They have the commitment, they have the drive, and they have identified a problem that's worth solving. And for one of our initial screens is, do they have a market-based solution? Do they have a market-based solution to this very valuable problem? And when we find those founders, and we work on campus a lot, whether it's through SciCity, whether it's through Yale Ventures, whether it's through some of the different events and programs like the upcoming Yale Innovation Summit or the Clean Energy Conference. We work a lot with founders, but when we bring them into the incubator program, which is the core of what we do at ClimateHaven, is this incubator program, and founders start to work with Kiko and I, we want to provide a very healthy amount of skepticism, and we want to provide a lot of honesty. And when you're on campus, building a business, it can be an intellectual exercise, it can be a creative exercise, it can be an academic exercise, but not often is it a brutally honest market-based winner take all exercise. And so the value, I think, in what we provide and what we try to do is work with these founders while they are still on campus, while they are essentially building on their sweat equity, and help pressure test the business model, help provide really honest feedback, help direct them towards a go-to-market strategy, which is going to take truly an accurate measure of how long it will take to sell, and give them a sense of how many at bats, how many swings of the bat it is going to take in order to complete that sale, or in the case of raising capital, complete that fundraise. I tell a story famously to a lot of founders of a specific quarter. One of the companies that I helped start, it was a specific quarter where it was make or break. And we did 161 meetings in a quarter, and that number will never escape me because I remember the toll it took on my family and the challenge it took mentally and physically to do 161 meetings in a quarter, not emails sent hoping something, but 161 meetings in order to raise the capital that we need to get the sufficient number of yeses that we needed in order to navigate this very challenging period in our startup. And it's not meant to discourage, but it's meant to prepare founders for the enormous challenge of leaving, frankly, what is we're pulling off the warm blanket of campus, right? And we're exposing them to the cold reality of being a founder. But we're also the best ally they've got. And we want to be that advisor. We want to be that support network. And we want to do everything we can to prepare them to be as ready as they possibly can to take all of those at-bats, all of those swings, endure all of those misses, and get to the right yes. And to get to sufficient number of yeses where they get that momentum in their business. And the one other thing I will add, and I think Kiko can build on this, is that it's not just about scaring founders and telling them it's going to suck, like get ready, but we try to be very, very tactical. We were working with a founder who's going through a B2B process in a regulated industry, and we are building a step-by-step process with him so that he can build champions internally. He can build champions internally that are frankly willing to risk some of their capital to get the other people in that organization to say yes to a novel technology in a very regulated industry. And that's not, one conversation and a yes. That's building the tools, the systems, all the things you need to do to take a champion through a journey and help them put their job on the line in order for their company to say yes to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that, add to that answer, that this is really the core value add of ClimateHaven is that we really roll up our sleeves and we work side by side with these founders. Aside from raising capital, of course, or making first hires, one of the biggest challenges is just getting customers, getting your first paying customers, revenue into your bank account, right? And we've been, and that also means like how can we leverage our network and simply our ability to sell for our founders, that a lot of them are maybe sophomores or juniors coming out of Yale College, who, as you mentioned, Ellen, do not have a Rolodex of contacts that they can reach out to. And so, we provide that crash course. We also do a lot. We also leverage AI tools to do that ourselves, right? So internally in-house, we have been spending a lot of time refining and being able to build out top of funnel BD tools for our founders. And we build them bespoke for each and every one of them that we work with. So these are, we try to leverage absolutely everything that we can, whether it's technological in-house or our own personal networks. But this is all part of the fun in terms of early stage company building.
Nice. That is awesome to hear. And I think that's also one of the places where people don't necessarily know what help they need. And so, sometimes people say, well, I just need money. I just need a check. It's really that ecosystem around them that helps them. And especially I think as first-time founders, you don't know how much just how much grit it takes to get to be faced with no, 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100. And so to have that support, I think that is crucial. I'm curious to know, like, have you guys seen qualities within a founder that lead you to say, like, hey, I think this person is going to be successful? Because, you know, I try to strike that balance because I get a lot of people looking for mentorship on healthcare, and I really need to hold back on like healthcare is hard and it's terrible and it's a really hard place to break into. Climate sounds like it's similar. How do you walk that balance of supporting them and giving them the reality without completely scaring them off? And what are the qualities that you see in founders that tell you like, I think this person can make it?
Kiko, you start.
Yeah, I would love to. There are a lot of components, right, in terms of what we look for. I think in general, what people should look for when it comes to supporting founders, whether it's through your own capital as an investor or as an advisor, or through your own, leveraging, basically offering your own network and all of that. But I think a big part of it is founder market fit. What we really look for is if a founder is excited about building in a certain space, uh, do they have do they have a lot of grit to build in this space? Do they have a deep connection with this industry, whether it's technical or it is on the commercial side? These are things that, that we can get really excited about to support a founder. And for some industries, right, it's like you're going to lead from a technical perspective. Like, for example, we see a lot of good stuff coming out of Yale Ventures, a lot of it from faculty-led research. And in that case, the founder or the founding team is going to be heavily anchored on the research and heavily anchored on the technological aspect of it and product building. And on the other end, maybe we're looking at something that is, on the opposite side of the spectrum, we're looking at a founder who maybe even perhaps is non-technical, right? But also perhaps everyone is technical nowadays with access to open Claude and Claude code and all of that. But maybe it's a non-technical founder who has a serious amount of experience or expertise in an industry, and they want to disrupt it, and they know exactly how it's going to be done. So these are all just a little taste in terms of what we're excited about when we see founders and when we meet with them.
Awesome. Um, do you have any sort of concrete examples of like founder journeys that illustrate that success of like, hey, here's a company that we were able to kind of get through our incubator and launch them out and here's how we helped. Do you have any examples that you can share?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate in the last few years to work with some climate tech companies that I think took the right approach to climate tech and have been able to meaningfully scale in the last couple of years. Crew Carbon was one of the first. They, interestingly enough, were positioned as a carbon removal company, but have really found their growth sector in water and in water technology. Have had really impressive growth over the last couple of years, raised both a seed and a Series A. I've closed close to $50 million of contracts with the Frontier Fund. Really impressive to see their growth. Oxalus Energy, sustainable aviation fuel, worked with that team very closely. We're really proud of the work that they did. I think they went through a really intensive process, put the work in themselves, and were able to raise an incredible C round. Most recently, were awarded a really nice size federal grant, a multi-million-dollar federal grant, which is impressive given the current climate on the federal level. Veristruct, wonderful example of a SOM founder in Nick Caligari, who came from SpaceX to SOM, was very committed to building a company. We worked closely with Nick and really helped him think about what he wanted to do in the world of 3D printing and helped him build a go-to-market strategy and fundraising plan and just ultimately watch Nick just excel at all of the company building aspects at the very early stages. And he closed a successful pre-seed round and is now building in the New York metro area and looking to prepare for his seed round and commercial expansion. And just examples of founders who were at Yale, super talented, and frankly, these folks could have done anything. They could have done absolutely anything, but they found real conviction in the problems that they were trying to solve. Found real commitment in going through the process. And, we honestly, we're grateful to have the opportunity to work with them, that they trusted us to invest some of their time in ClimateHaven. And it's been really incredible to see them grow and others grow over the last 3 years. And the only thing that has me more excited than those companies is frankly the group of founders that we're working on campus with right now, which honestly, it's been a roller coaster in climate tech the last decade, but I think there's something really special brewing on campus, and I'm really excited about kind of the entrepreneurial spirit that we're seeing and the level of talent of the founders we're seeing on campus and the things they're starting to build.
Nice. For those of us who aren't deeply steeped in the climate world, what are the market areas that you're most excited about? And I know you guys have talked about kind of a market-oriented approach.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the verticals or areas where you're seeing the most innovation, where you're seeing success stories?
Yeah, and this will be a quick moment to take a step back and just examine climate tech from a macro level over the last decade or so. And this is probably helpful to the folks listening. I mean, if you were to go back to 2015, 2016, so let's just say go back one decade, um, you know, clean technology really represented solar, represented wind, represented kind of an emerging market in electric vehicles and the batteries that powered them. And it was about that time, 2015, 2016, where it's almost like a kind of cultural social milieu started to emerge, adopt around climate. And, you saw net zero goals, started to be established. You saw the Paris Agreement. You saw a more kind of social purpose behind climate. And what kind of started to gel was this belief. And again, I'm not arguing with this belief. It is a moral belief, and I believe in it, that for the sake of this planet and for the health of the inhabitants on it and those future generations, our children and grandchildren, we should decarbonize the planet. That's a reasonable and very moral belief, and it manifested itself in those net zero goals that you saw countries adopt, not the U.S. but others. You saw corporations adopt. You saw a lot of municipalities and states adopt. And all of those commitments they were like flares, sending out market signals. And those market signals, those went off, and suddenly you had the sense that, well, if a state or if a corporation is going to go net zero, they're going to need a lot of green everything. And even though our green cement, our green steel, our green electrons, our green vehicles, our green whatever costs more, that's okay. They're going to need it. And they're willing to pay the green premium. They're willing to pay that because they can't reach net zero without it. They're going to need it. We're all in for the planet. This is what we're doing. This movement cannot be stopped. The train has left the station. Like it's there. And so you just saw capital flow in. And it was consensus that this is what we were going to do. And so capital comes in and places consensus bets. The vast majority of these technologies are not better. Well, excuse me. They may be better, but they're usually not faster and they're not cheaper than their high carbon incumbents. And in some instances, they're not even better. They're just an equivalent of a higher carbon incumbent, right? And now, fast forward to 2024, 2025, and that moral sense, that underpinning to this notion of net zero, to saving the planet, to decarbonization, it just kind of eroded away. And, you can, there's a lot of postmortems on this, and it can be political and economic. But the bottom line is that we as Americans are selfish and we don't like paying high prices for anything. And an inflation narrative took over, and ultimately it prevailed, and those tailwinds for climate disappeared. They disappeared. And so why that is both scary in some sense for the planet and for decarbonization goals, but as an incubator that is working with entrepreneurs in disruptive technologies and wants to invest in them, and we can get to the investment piece in a minute, why this is really exciting is because this is where the climate tech work gets hard, right? And this is where you roll up your sleeves and say, climate tech continues, but it's going to continue in a non-consensus way. And now there are all sort of incredible entrepreneurial opportunities to build companies, to solve problems, and for investors to invest in these non-consensus bets that are going to have big payoffs. So with that long preamble, that brings us to this moment. What are the things which really, really excite us? Artificial intelligence, of course, because we think that is going to be the unlock to autonomy. And autonomy, in our humble opinion, is going to be a bigger driver of decarbonization than a lot of some of those green commodities that we mentioned earlier. Why? Because the majority of autonomous vehicles are going to be electrified. You're not going to see diesel tanks on the back of drones or autonomous robots or other autonomous devices. So autonomy is going to be an incredible driver of decarbonization, and it's also going to be an incredible driver of economic growth and prosperity. Electrification, enormous, right? You could almost think of the biggest opportunity in climate tech, or where climate tech really stands. It's an electro-tech movement. Why are electrons going to win? Because they're more thermally efficient than hydrocarbons. And because we have technologies, frankly, a lot of which are commoditized, that can generate clean electrons. We have other technologies that aren't yet fully commoditized, like fusion and modular fission and geothermal and other things, which are going to bring more clean electrons onto the grid. And now we have all sorts of opportunities to build companies that are going to help manage those clean electrons and think about how we store and deploy and transact those clean electrons. Human health is a very interesting, kind of cross area where, we don't want to just think of the planet's health, but we want to think of humans' health and how, human health can play a role in decarbonization. And ultimately, we look at software and artificial intelligence and computing as a whole and say, if it's going to consume a lot of power, we ultimately want to ensure that it drives incredible efficiencies in the inefficient part of our carbon intensive economy. And trucking is one example, but we're looking at a lot of different industrial applications where there are opportunities for agentic layer artificial intelligence to dramatically decarbonize companies simply by reducing inefficiencies. And that's just a kind of a handful of things that are getting us excited. Kiko, what would you add there? What did I miss?
I don't think you missed anything. I think that's a great high level, 10,000 foot view of what we're excited about. And I guess to sort of emphasize or maybe reiterate a point in that, right? We're really excited about the electron-based systems. And the North Star here really is things that touch the physical world that are just simply better, faster, and cheaper. And this next step that we're taking towards electron-based systems is just it's one step in the historic evolution of power and fuels and technology. We went from the dawn of man with biomass and burning wood and crop waste onto coal, and then onto oil, where we refined petroleum into kerosene, right? Actually, which they did here at Yale first. Shout out to Yale. And then onwards to natural gas, and then now towards electrification, right? And so the things that we're excited about is not breathtakingly, non-consensus and completely ahistorical. We're just moving towards things that are thermodynamically more efficient. We're just moving towards things that are simply better, faster, cheaper, fuels that have lower impurities. And we're seeing right now, like probably the biggest technological transformation towards this very next step through the adoption of AI, through the building of autonomy and physical world robotics. So it's an exciting time to build companies, and a lot of it is going to touch the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
As usual, he said it better than I did. So what Kiko said, I love that.
Nice. So it sounds like because we're seeing this kind of bump up in energy usage and consumption. Gas prices are going up. We'll not talk about the cause, but gas is very expensive these days. That provides the market pressure then to look for alternatives and in ways that companies or even countries might not have been considering previously because it was such an available resource. Now you're looking at companies making investments in renewables, in alternative energy sources, not just because it's sort of quote unquote the right thing to do, but also because it makes economic sense. And that's kind of the market driver where it's not because you're relying on a policy decision that's being made that could be reversed. You're actually making the new technology is making it make sense to actually use this because it is across the board just a better product.
100%. And I think that we as a climate tech ecosystem, we are probably guilty of over-indexing on technology the last number of years, getting excited about low carbon technologies in certain sectors. And it wouldn't, a couple of years ago, we would have sat down with a company and said, okay, I've got this low carbon thing, and the Inflation Reduction Act is providing tax credits, and I think that I'm gonna get down the cost curve if I can take advantage of these tax credits. And we just got so excited about the tech, and we got so excited about the incentives or the laws that were being applied to the tech, that we forgot to step back and look at the team and look at the market. And now what we say to all our founders is, and this may sound a little bit odd coming from an organization like ClimateHaven, but we say to all of our founders very plainly: the planet is not your customer. It's not. The planet can be a beneficiary of your work. It should be a beneficiary of your work. I genuinely hope we want to make the world a better place and leave it a better place. But ultimately, a person is going to be your customer. Whether it's direct to consumer or business to business, a person will be your customer. Even if you're doing a B2B sale, we tell people B2B is really B2L. You're selling to somebody in front of you in New Haven or New York or Boston. Well, guess who's actually making the decision? It's the B2L is Larry or Linda in the back office in Indianapolis, who's the VP of procurement. They're making the decision. So you're selling to a person, which means that we are going to evaluate you, not the tech. We're going to evaluate you as a founder and whether you have that conviction and that commitment to build a company and ultimately deliver a technology that's better, faster, and or cheaper than the market-based alternatives. And you're willing to fight. And we're willing to help you fight. We're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to work with you. And if you do that, if you focus and do the very hard thing of building a technology and ultimately scaling a company that's delivering better, faster, and cheaper to a person, and if that has an impact and helps improve the planet, then you're going to accomplish something amazing, right? And we've been very fortunate, not to be based, at some far afield place, but to be based in New Haven and to be supported by Yale, and to have this incredibly deep well of talent, of human capital at the university, of folks who are committed to that, right? It's the beauty of Yale is you're talking about some of the world's smartest people who are incredibly well-intentioned and want to do amazing things. And so the entrepreneurial spirit that's really been building on campus the last 5 to 10 years is really starting to take hold, and it's absolutely dynamic. And we're at the point where we are not losing sight of that kind of North Star of helping scale companies that are going to improve our physical world, enhance and improve planetary health, and make an impact. But if you have a low carbon thing that doesn't generate a dollar of revenue, there's no benefit, there's no impact, right? And that's the message we try to just really kind of drill into the heads of our founders. And luckily for us, we're working with some incredible founders. And I to Kiko's point earlier about founder market fit, I'm confident that we're working with founders on campus, both in stealth and that are about to emerge from campus as they graduate. There's some Decacorn founders in there. I know it. And we're excited to support them, but we're going to help improve our physical world. We're going to help improve planetary health by making sure they sell, right? And that they generate real revenue and that they scale. That's the way that they're going to have an impact on this planet.
Yeah. So you're building businesses, not just projects, right? Not just PR projects, feel good pilots. It's really how do you actually turn this into a business? Um,
Absolutely.
I love what you were saying about New Haven. I know you guys are in the 770 Chapel building, right?
That's right.
You guys are right on top of Make Haven. My office used to be in that building on the second floor. It's a fun building.
It is. It's an interesting
Uh,
place.
yes, it is. Steve and Julie.
You nailed it. Yep.
Great folks. Tell me a little bit about how the ecosystem and just for our audience as well. What's the ecosystem in New Haven? I know we've got Connecticut has been investing a lot into its startup economy. Yale has been investing a lot. City of New Haven. We've got Connecticut Innovations. We've got, all these kind of innovation centers. Uh, Tell us a little bit about, why and how Yale and New Haven are kind of keeping companies in that ecosystem and how they're supporting them. Because I know in the past, you get companies that just kind of like they basically leave as soon as folks graduate. What's the ecosystem like these days?
Kiko, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, yeah. So over the past, as I mentioned earlier, I recently moved back from San Francisco and have a bit more fresh eyes, I want to say, back in New Haven. And oh my God, there are so many people building companies now. Certainly in comparison to even 5 years ago. And the quality of student founders and people that are building companies is a magnitude better than it was 5 years ago. I mean, it is really incredible, very, very encouraging to see. And this is in part due to all of the supports that have been that do exist right now, and that people have been investing in New Haven and in Connecticut. Maybe I can speak a little bit to what I've been seeing on campus in particular. Student groups is one thing, but more than that, so a lot of this ecosystem that we're seeing right now is incredibly bespoke, and it's also just really cracked engineers and students working together, doing dinners together, constantly grabbing coffee and keeping up with one another. And then also looping in investors here and there from around the ecosystem. A big part of it is Yale Ventures. I know Yale Ventures, really got started in 2022 with Josh DeBall, and under his leadership, it is absolutely blossomed into a place. I believe it's 101 College Street is where they're located, but a lot of students are feeling a pull towards that ecosystem, and there's a lot of really good programmatic stuff happening there as well. But the best part about Connecticut, which I've always sort of proselytized this, is that everyone is just one phone call away. Our ecosystem is small, but it is mighty, and it definitely punches above its weight class. But yeah, I mean, it's just continuing to grow right now is all I can speak to. So.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. We have about 10 minutes left, and we actually do have two questions that actually tie into this a little bit. So first one, we have a message from Alyssa, who I think might know you, Ryan, from back at Blu Homes. So she's actually looking for ways to help support. So she is a startup and venture lawyer. She advises a lot of startups, and she's actually looking for ways to help. So how can the broader Yale alumni ecosystem help some of the startups that are part of Climate Haven? How do we partner? How do we support?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as Kiko mentions, more people on campus building than ever before. That's incredibly exciting. There's more founders for us to meet with and to work with. Also incredibly exciting. But ultimately, we as a small organization need leverage. Right? We need levers that we can pull in order to have outsized impact, and that 110% comes from the Yale community and the Yale alumni community. I'll give you four ways from the simple to the more complex, which I would encourage anybody to act on in order to help Climate Haven and help the entrepreneurs. One is the simple stuff. So we can, make sure we send a follow-up note. Follow us on LinkedIn, sign up for the newsletter. We have a pretty good, healthy calendar of kind of programming and events, throughout the year, and we like to share that. And we also share updates on some of the key founders and startups we're working with. So that's a very simple way to be connected. Number two, we are always looking for folks who are willing to mentor and support with kind of specialized guidance or kind of specialized resource. Um, as Kiko mentioned earlier and talked about some of the challenges that the founders face on the business development side, some of the tools that we end up building to help them acquire first customers or to acquire that first investment. If there is something that you can offer as an alum or give back, maybe it's you are an executive in a particular industry, you are an attorney and want to help advise or guide and have goods, a specialization in financing or another aspect of corporate law. You are willing to invest and would like to put your capital to work, in investing, right? The folks that have those specializations and are willing to give back, we would love to hear from you. That's not a promise that we have an opportunity for you to act on at that moment, but the best way that we can have those levers to pull when we find founders is to know the folks out there that are willing to engage. The third way, and I guess this one will depend upon where you are in the world, but is to come back and visit Climate Haven and to visit New Haven and come back to campus and to see what's going on, and to potentially to meet with some of the student founders and meet with our team. If there's an interest, and again, this isn't corporate innovation theater, this isn't some museum tour, but if there's an interest in coming back, seeing what's going on, meeting with founders, rolling up your sleeves, getting the opportunity to connect with them, we would be delighted to host, and we would be delighted to potentially meet you and work with you and understand what is the specialization, the skills, the network that you bring, and how we could help you connect to founders. And the last, which is the one that we can't live without, of course, is that Climate Haven is a 501c3. So I would be not doing my job if I said we have an obligation to raise capital every year, philanthropic capital from folks. We have a Future Climate Leaders campaign that's going on right now that supports the fellows and interns that we bring on from Yale to work with our founders and to do research projects. And so if you're looking for a really interesting way to support future climate leaders and to support our work, check out the Future Climate Fellows campaign at climatehaven.tech. So 4 specific ways you can be helpful, and hopefully there'll be some opportunities for us all to connect in the future.
Awesome. And for anybody who missed it, climatehaven.tech is how you get to the landing page, sign up for the newsletter, and get in touch.
That's right.
We did have another question. So one, and I think this is also geared for the folks who might be starting companies and who might not be in New Haven. Are there other organizations like sister organizations, competitors, or folks that are similar to Climate Haven doing what you guys are doing, maybe in different areas? And how do folks find those resources if they're not, if they're not at Yale, if they're not in New Haven right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's something unique about what we do, which I'll circle back to in a moment. But generally, this entrepreneurial support is a really, really valuable resource that is provided in a lot of different communities. Boston is home to Greentown Labs and the Engine. Greentown is near and dear to me. I was a part of the leadership team there and helped that organization scale. Greentown Labs and the Engine are both great organizations for Boston-based entrepreneurs. New York has Urban Future Lab, as well as Batworks and SOSV Hacks. Those are all organizations based in the New York area, which are great entrepreneurial resources. If you're out on the West Coast, LACY, the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, is a great organization that supports Los Angeles area entrepreneurs. So there are organizations like ClimateHaven that provide entrepreneurial support in a lot of different cities, a lot of different places. What is unique about what we do is that we're deeply committed to the Yale ecosystem and to the Yale entrepreneurial community, and to the founders on campus that want to navigate that pathway off campus. And what we bring to the table probably is the best network and the best ground game on campus, just in terms of understanding what's going on, and frankly, a roll up your sleeves attitude and a mindset that you're probably not going to find in a lot of other places. Not meant to be a pitch. That's just who we are and what we love to do. And I think what sets us apart. So for those folks that are, in New Haven and at Yale, and those exceptional entrepreneurs that want to work with us, we're game. We're game for conversation. And for those folks who aren't and want to find a great place in Boston or New York or LA, or Chicago has M Lab, or excuse me, M Hub. Sorry, M Hub. There great places in Houston, Texas. Greentown has a location there. They're great places everywhere. Find your people. Find your community. And just make sure, all entrepreneurs, just make sure when you find your community, that you're the customer, not the product. And the one challenge being in an ecosystem is that in a lot of ecosystems, and this is a word of caution to entrepreneurs, you're the product, not the customer. And when you're working with an organization, you want to be the customer. And that's kind of an ethos we try to live by every day, is we remind ourselves we're doing this work for the entrepreneurs. They're our customers. We're earning the right to work with them. And so wherever you end up, make sure that you feel the same way about the people you're working with.
Awesome. We did have a shout out from Oscar, who also answered in the Q&A. New Lab in Brooklyn is also
Great one.
check that out.
Yes.
Apparently the director is a Yaley, so another great one to check out. We are actually at time. We had one question that we didn't get to. Highly encourage you to reach out. So climatehaven.tech is where you'll find both of these guys. And then email, I think they can reach out. Is there
here, really
address?
simple. It's super simple. Ryan at climatehaven.tech. All right.
Perfect.
And Kiko at climatehaven.tech. So you're welcome to reach out to us, connect, follow us on LinkedIn. And we're very excited about building our relationship with the Yale alumni community and finding ways for the alums to empower and propel the great founders that are on campus and build the next generation of companies. We are pumped for it.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. As always, you can find Accelerate Yale at accelerateyale.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. We usually send out everything about our webinars and upcoming events there, as well as sharing news from our partners like ClimateHaven. Please check out climatehaven.tech. If you have any questions, the question that we didn't get to, or anything that comes up later, feel free to email Ryan and Kiko. We will also be posting a recording of this on our YouTube channel. So if you missed this, or if you have someone else that you think would want to hear this, feel free to pass that along as well. It might take us a couple of days to get that up. Thank you again, everybody, for joining on a Tuesday afternoon/evening. This was a great conversation. It is so nice to hear about all the things going on in the ecosystem, and especially in a very complex industry like climate tech. So it's great to hear your guys' point of view and to get that kind of update, and to see how the ecosystem is evolving and really growing to support the student entrepreneurs. All right. That's all we've got for you. Thank you again, everybody. Again, shout out to the Yale Alumni Association for helping us with hosting this webinar and the logistics. And we will let you guys off for a wonderful evening.
Shout out to our moderator.
All
Nice
righty.
job, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Well, thank you guys for joining. Couldn't do it without
All
you
right.
guys.
Have a great night, everybody. We'll
All
see
right.
you.
Thanks all.